want to live as if they were in medieval times? Well, we probably would be if it weren't for Isaac Newton and his major contributions to modern math and science. I know of his life and contributions to such things because I've done the research on both, and yeah. So I'm going to inform you all about these contributions by giving a detailed biography of Isaac Newton. I will start with his birth in 1643 up to 1669, then from 1669 to 87, and finally from 87 until his death in 1727. So before anyone gets too excited, I'm going to start with his early life from 1643 to 1669. Everything from here on out is according to a biography from J. O'Connor and E. Robertson, an article on Gottfried Leibniz found at storyofmathematics.com, and another article on Newton contributed by Alfred Hall. Newton was born in Lincolnshire on January 4th, 1643, and was treated like an orphan throughout his childhood life and didn't really care for school until the 60s. He went from the Free Grammar School in 1660 to the Free Trinity College in 61, with the aim of acquiring a degree in law. Newton became a fellow at Cambridge in 1663, a scholar in 64, and then obtained a bachelor's degree in 65. The Black Plague struck the area, which forced Newton to return home to Lincolnshire, and for the 2 years while in Lincolnshire, Newton created the early versions of his 3 laws of motion and new math. He returned to Cambridge, acquired his master's, and was elected to a major fellowship there in 1669. And this was a major turning point by which sparked a very productive era of his life up to 1687. Newton took the position as a professor and taught his first class in 1670 on optics. He taught the very touchy idea that white light was a spectrum of colors as opposed to a single entity. This led him to make a reflecting telescope, which didn't interfere with the light, as opposed to the telescopes before that, in which they used lenses that caused a much more blurry image, or chromatic aberration, in his words. This came from the prism. And Newton was elected as a fellow of the Royal Society in 1672 because of this new telescope, and also published his first paper regarding his new theory of optics and color in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society. Newton delayed to publish his new book, Optics, until 1703, in which was the year his most annoying criticizer, Hooke, died. Hooke's criticism, along with Newton's supporters, influenced Newton to stop all of Hooke's boasting about classical mechanics by publishing a book explaining all that he knew. From that was born the greatest scientific book ever written, Principia. Published in 1687, Principia explained the forces on bodies moving in a circular motion like the Earth and Sun, projectiles, and pendulums. The other most important subject explained in that book was the law of universal gravitation and how to calculate it. And enough of that era. I'm now going to talk about his life from the publishing of the Principia up until his death in 1727. James II became King of Great Britain in 85 and was a somewhat dictatorial Roman Catholic. What really set Newton and the country off was when James II decided to give a degree to a monk who didn't take any of the required exams or oaths. Newton convinced the vice-chancellor of the college to undo this, but the chancellor was fired for doing so. William of Orange had been invited by many leaders of Great Britain, including Newton, to bring his army to overthrow James II. And so in 1688, William landed on Great Britain's soil, and James II fled to France, seeing as all his Protestant soldiers left his army. And the University of Cambridge elected Newton as one of 2 members to the Convention Parliament, and with that power gave the crown to William and Mary, which is a lot of power back then. And after that, he decided to leave Cambridge to pursue a government position in London as a warden of the Royal Mint, and then a master soon after. In 1703, he was elected as a president of the Royal Society each year until his death, and was knighted by Queen Anne in 1705. Being the first scientist to ever be knighted. Gottfried Leibniz and Newton got into a heated argument over who was the original creator of calculus. Leibniz was the first to publish anything of the sort in 1684, and Newton in 1693. Newton used his power as the president of the Royal Society to convince the world that he was the original creator of calculus, and was the first one to think of it in 1666 during the plague years. Ironically, Leibniz's notation for integration and differentiation or derivatives was the one used today. So in conclusion, I have now informed you all about Newton's life, legacy, and contributions to math and science. I've explained it in 3 parts, starting from his birth in 1643 to 69, from 69 up to the publishing of the Principia in 87, and from 87 up until his death in 1727. This man was, and still is considered, one of the greatest scientists in the history of the world, right next to Einstein, and above Einstein in my opinion, seeing as Einstein was all theoretical and his was concrete. And that's it.
Very good.